This threader is used to thread the yarn. The punch needle has 4 settings: A, B, C, and D. Rotate and press the tail to adjust the setting. Each setting corresponds to a different needle tube length. For beginners, we recommend using the C setting. Now let's start threading. Take the pointed end of the threader and pass it through the eye of the needle at the tip. Thread it along the needle tube inward. Insert the threader until it passes through the tail of the punch needle. Next, take out the yarn. Pass the yarn end through the threader. Pull it out a short distance. Then pull the excess threader at the front of the needle tip. Pull the yarn out through the needle eye. Then remove the threader. Once threaded, it looks like this. The yarn is brought out through the needle tube, then passes through the position of the needle eye. The excess yarn at the front of the needle tip should be pulled back, leaving about 3–5 centimeters. Take out the light green yarn. Thread the yarn using the method demonstrated earlier. The entire piece is made using the C setting of the punch needle. Start punching the middle lawn section. Begin from the right side. Try to find the square holes formed by the intersection of the warp and weft threads. Punch along the drawn pattern. The bevel side of the needle should face the direction we want to punch. When punching, push the needle all the way down. Pull the yarn end to the back. Leave about 5 centimeters. When starting, keep the needle tip close to the fabric, don't lift it too high, otherwise, it's easy to pull out the stitches. Each stitch should be 7–10 millimeters apart. Insert the needle. Push the needle all the way down. This completes the first segment. Continue punching the next stitch. After punching, it forms small segments. Try to keep the stitch spacing consistent. This makes the finished piece more detailed and attractive. If you encounter a situation like yarn coming loose, you can pull out the punch needle. Gently remove the loose or unsatisfactory parts. Lightly scrape the fabric with the needle to repair small holes in the fabric. Tuck away excess yarn ends. Then reinsert the needle. Now we're punching at the edge position. You can see the next line goes downward. So after lifting the punch needle, first adjust the direction of the slanted opening. Make it face downward. Continue punching at intervals of 7–10 millimeters. Next is the edge of the bushes. Here, to make it easier to create the bushes later, we need to first leave the outline of the bushes. When punching, insert the needle outside the outline. After lifting the punch needle, adjust it according to the direction of the outline. Then insert the needle just above the outline. The punched segments will be next to the edge of the outline. They won't cover the outline. You can adjust the direction of the embroidery hoop. Find a more comfortable position. The punched segments won't cover the outline. When punching at the edge, punch directly on the line. Next, start filling the inside of the lawn. There are many small patterns inside the lawn. These patterns are fully punched, then embroidered onto the lawn using embroidery techniques. You need to mark their positions. Mainly mark the positions of the deer and flowers. Adjust the slanted opening direction for the second row. Offset it by half a stitch from the first row. Find the middle position of the first segment. Insert the needle. When punching, the two rows of segments should be close together. Don't let the fabric underneath show through. This is the effect after punching a few stitches. The two rows of segments are parallel and arranged in a staggered pattern. Continue punching to the left using the same method. Punch to the corner position at the edge. You can see there's still half a stitch left. We need to take this half stitch and punch it directly below the vertical segment next to it. When punching, gently push the segment aside. Insert the needle at the bottom of the segment. Don't punch into the yarn. This completes the half stitch. Continue working to the right using the same method. The segments of the third row and the second row are also staggered. Punch to the position below the house. There's a stone pattern here. The next stitch is just to the left of the stone. The stitch after that is just to the right of the stone. The length of the segments is about the same as the pattern. At the positions on the left and right of the segment above the stone, mark a dot on each side with the water-soluble pen. The water-soluble pen can disappear with water. This marks the first stone. Continue punching. Punch to the edge position. Insert the needle at the bottom of the segment as before. Be careful not to punch into the yarn. This completes the third row. Then start punching the fourth row. Punch to the position of the flower pattern. It also needs to be marked. But to reduce the traces of drawing lines, we only need to mark the 5 endpoints of the segment and the center position. Follow the method demonstrated earlier. Punch row by row downward. Remember to mark the positions with patterns. The center position should also be marked. The edge effect after punching is relatively neat. It won't reveal the embroidery fabric underneath. The segment at the top of the first bush has already connected with the lawn. There will be a small empty triangle left on the left side. We can first fill this empty part completely. After filling it, hold the yarn end and pull out the punch needle. Cut the yarn. Then use the needle tip to gently push the yarn end to the back. Next, follow the method demonstrated earlier. Continue punching row by row downward. This completes the lawn part. Flip it over to the back to take a look. The back consists of fluffy little loops and some small yarn ends. These yarn ends can be trimmed after everything is finished. Before trimming. Next, still using the light green stranded yarn to create the tree part above. There will be a branch in the middle of the tree. The branch will also be embroidered on after the base color is filled in. We need to first punch along the outer outline. Then use a wrapping method to work inwards circle by circle. Fill the pattern completely. Start from this position. Insert the needle to the left of the line. Pull the yarn end to the back. Reserve the outline of the tree on the right. Punch upward using the same method as before. Punch to the position of this tree's own outer outline. Punch directly on the line. Reserve the outer outline of the tree on the right. Finally, return to the starting point. Then start punching inward. Insert the needle in the middle of each segment of the first circle. Fill it circle by circle inward. Fill this tree completely using the same method. Cut the yarn after filling. Push the yarn end to the back. This completes all the light green parts. The material kit provides a bit more yarn. During the punching process, just fill the blank areas completely. Don't let the embroidery fabric show through. No need to punch too densely. Next, follow the same method as the light green tree to complete the remaining trees. Next, start punching these to triangular trees. Change the yarn to grass green. Thread the yarn from the bottom. The edge outline can be reserved to make it easier to sew the wool strips later. Push the yarn end to the back. Work along the drawn lines. Move to the intersection of the two lines and punch. Insert the needle at the endpoint of the upper line. After starting, don't lift the punch needle upward. Instead, keep it close to the fabric. Move forward to the next insertion point. Lifting it directly can easily cause the yarn to come loose. Repair the fabric. Reinsert the needle. Shift the second line forward. Insert the needle for the next segment. When punching to a spot blocked by yarn, gently push the yarn aside. Insert the needle at the intersection of the two lines. This is the effect after punching a few stitches. The length of the segments matches the spacing of the horizontal lines. If the yarn tends to come loose during punching, use your finger to press down on the exit point first. Then continue punching. The left side is punched using the same method. Next, start punching the roof position. The roof lines need to be reserved. This completes one circle of the outer outline. Then punch row by row inward. Stay close to the first circle of segments. Each segment is inserted on the drawn horizontal lines, so the length of the two rows of segments is similar. Continue punching using the same method. This completes one row. So you can stop punching downward and change direction. Work back. If the fabric underneath shows between two rows of segments, pull out the yarn. Repair the small holes in the fabric. Then repunch. Cut the yarn after filling completely. Tidy up the intersecting areas in the middle. Gently push aside the overlapping yarn. This completes one triangular tree. Using the same method, punch the other triangular tree. This completes both triangular trees. Next, start punching the house part. Change the yarn to orange yarn. Punch one row along the lines. At the intersection of the two roofs' bottom right corners, reinsert the needle. Punch along the lines. Then insert the needle and punch on the horizontal lines. The punched segments are parallel to the edge lines. There will be a small gap in the middle. You can hold the punch needle position with your hand while working. The shape after punching is a parallelogram. This completes one roof. Next, make the small roof beside it. Still using orange yarn, insert the needle from the edge. Punch one row along the lines. Cut the yarn. The methods for the two roofs are different. First, fill the right eaves completely. Punching one row is enough, then adjust the slanted opening direction. Punch along the direction of the lines. Reserve the position of the lines while punching. The last stitch is next to the lines of the big roof. Punch back for the second row. Offset it by half a stitch from the first row. Fill the small roof using the same method. Tidy up the edge yarn after punching. Cover the exposed gaps. This completes the small roof. Next, switch to brown yarn and punch one row along the eaves. Insert the needle at the intersection of the two eaves. Keep the stitch spacing consistent with the orange segments above. The two segments are parallel. The small roof is the same. Punch one row along the eaves. Next, switch to off-white yarn to make the wall parts. Work on these three areas separately. Later, embroider on the punched walls. The door position needs to be reserved. This completes the outer outlines of the three areas. Next, follow the same method as the lawn. Fill the wall areas completely. We can first continue upward to fill the triangle. Then punch the lower part. You can punch by sections. Using the same method, punch the other two areas as well. This completes all the punch embroidery parts. Next, use wool strips to make the remaining bushes and trees. Unfold the yarn. Measure it against the width of the sleeve frame. Then fold it in half once. Cut the yarn. Take out the large eye needle. Thread the yarn through. Pull out a short yarn end. Tie a knot at the longer yarn tail. Trim the excess yarn end to about 5 mm. This completes the threading. First, Embroider the bush part in the lower left corner. Take out the army green wool strip. Spread it out. Place the prepared wool strip on the small tree. Leave 1.5 centimeters of length at the top and bottom. Refer to the width of the small tree. Tear off a small section of the wool strip. Leave an extra 1.5 centimeters. Pinch it with your fingers as a mark. Then cut the wool strip at the marked spot. Tidy up the wool strip you just cut. Make its surface smoother. Place the wool strip over the pattern. When placing it on the pattern, keep the texture vertical. Then take out the threaded yarn. Insert the needle from the back, sew along the outline. First pass through the fabric. Then pick up a small section of the wool strip and pass through. Picking up just a little is enough. Pull the needle out. Push the wool strip aside. Find the small hole from the previous insertion. Pass through the same hole to the back. Gently pull downward. Pull until the thin thread is just out of sight. This secures the wool strip in the fabric. Follow the drawn pattern. Insert the needle about 1 centimeter apart. If you don't insert the needle into the same small hole, the white thin thread will remain on the fabric. But because the wool strip is quite fluffy, the thin thread won't be visible from the surface, so it's fine if a little shows from the side. If too much is exposed, you'll need to resew it. The outline is curved. You need to fold the excess wool strip inward at the edges, leaving an arc that matches the outline. Insert the needle about 1 centimeter apart. Pass through the same small hole to the back. Continue sewing using the same method. This way, the wool strip will be fixed onto the fabric. If it's really too long, you can trim it a little, but leave at least 1 centimeter of length. Press it with your fingers to secure it. Then continue sewing along the outline. If there's excess wool strip at the top, you can trim it first. Leave about 1 centimeter. Then fold it inward. Continue sewing after folding. If it feels awkward, you can adjust the direction of the embroidery hoop. After sewing, adjust the wool strip at the edges. Make it a bit smoother. Then flip to the back. Knot it to secure. Hold the thread with your left hand. Place the large eye needle above the thread. Wrap the thread around the needle once. Pull the thread out. Press with your finger to tighten. Cut the thread, leaving about 5 millimeters. This completes the sewing of one small tree. Next, take out the light green wool strip. Place it above the next small tree to be sewn. Refer to the width of the pattern. Tear the wool strip. Find the bottom position of the pattern. Cut the wool strip about 1.5 centimeters below. Sew the wool strip using the method demonstrated earlier. Knot the thread at the tail end. Insert the needle close to the adjacent small tree. Don't let the fabric show between the two trees. It's okay if it passes through a bit of the adjacent wool strip. If the wool strip in the middle feels sparse, tear off some excess wool strip from the sides. Fill it in the middle position. Continue sewing the remaining parts. The method for the remaining trees and bushes is the same as demonstrated earlier. Next, start the embroidery part. First, let's look at the branch embroidery method. Measure against the width of the embroidery hoop. Take a piece of brown yarn. Embroider with a single strand. Tie a knot at the longer end of the thread. Before embroidering, determine the position of the main branch. It can be slightly to the right of the center. Mark it with your finger after deciding. Then insert the needle from the back, close to the bottom of the wool strip. First, embroider vertically upward. Embroider a segment about 2 centimeters long. Don't pull the yarn too tight. It should just rest on the wool strip. Continue embroidering upward. Press down on the wool strip to prevent the wool strip from being pulled along with the thread. During embroidery, continuously insert and exit the needle. This can easily make the yarn loose. So before embroidering, you can twist the loose yarn tighter first. Then hold it with your hand and continue embroidering. The embroidered branch will have a stronger line effect. Embroider another short segment upward. You can refer to the pattern on the diagram for guidance. Then embroider side branches on both sides. The side branches will be shorter than the main branch. The right side branch tilts to the left. This completes one branch. Next, flip to the back. Hide the thread end. Pass it under the adjacent segment. Wrap it upward inside the loop. Don't pull on the loop. After wrapping, trim off the excess thread end. How should the colors of the branches be matched? Here, 5 colors are selected, all of which can be used for branches. Which color is more suitable? You can place the yarn on the tree to compare and decide based on your preference. You can also refer to the pattern colors in the diagram. Dark trees paired with light branches. Light trees paired with dark branches. The overall color scheme of the picture will look richer. Next, start embroidering the bushes on both sides of the house. Take a piece of light green yarn. Tie a knot at the end. From the back, find the bottom right edge of the bush. Insert the needle. Space it 2 to 3 centimeters apart. Insert the needle close to the bush and pass to the back. Don't tighten the loop yet. Bring the needle up at the midpoint between the 2 points. Slowly tighten the loop. The thread is on the right side of the segment. If the thread is loose, you can twist it tighter. Embroider the next stitch with the same 2 to 3 centimeter spacing. Don't tighten it yet. Move closer to the first segment. At the position of the upper end point, bring the needle up. The second line is also embroidered. Continue embroidering along the edge of the bush using the same method. The embroidered outline will be thicker than the branches. This completes the right side. Tidy up the thread ends on the back. Then embroider a line on the surface of the left bush. Insert the needle from the left edge, roughly in the middle of the bush. First embroider a short segment upward, then embroider downward. The embroidery method is the same. Don't pull too tight. It should just rest against the wool strip. Tidy it up. Then handle the thread ends on the back. The right bush is the same. Still use light green thread to embroider. Insert the needle from the bottom left. If a thread end gets pulled out, flip to the back. Find the corresponding thread end and pull it out. Set it aside, or cut it off directly. Flip back over. First embroider along the edge. If by mistake, the thread passes between the segment and the bush, pass the thread over first. The exit point should always be on the outside of the segment. This completes the right bush. Next, start embroidering the decorations on the lawn. The stone parts all use brown yarn. Work based on the previously marked positions. Start with the smallest stone. Insert the needle from the back at the right endpoint position. Then pass through the left endpoint to the back. Embroider another layer using the same method. This completes one small stone. The one on the left is the same. Embroider to segments. This stone is slightly larger than the previous three. You can embroider 3 segments. Loosen the yarn a bit. This way, the gaps between segments won't be so obvious. The embroidered stone will look nicer. The remaining stones will be wider, so they can't be done like the previous ones. We'll demonstrate with this middle stone. First, insert the needle at the marked segment on the top, just one horizontal line. Then move down close to the first segment. Embroider the second line. The second line should be slightly longer than the first. Loosen it a bit. Symmetrically find the insertion point on the other side. Pass to the back. This completes the second line. Continue embroidering the third line. The third line should be slightly longer than the second. Close to the second segment. Continue downward using the same method. Embroider until reaching the left and right endpoints. Start decreasing the length downward, symmetrical to the upper half. If it's too short, you can add a longer segment on top. This completes one large stone. The thread ends on the back. Hide them using the same method as before. Next, using the same embroidery method, embroider the remaining stones. Embroider each stone into an oval shape. Next, start making the flower parts. Measure a length of off-white thread against the embroidery hoop. The middle dot is the flower center. Insert the needle at any one of the 5 surrounding dots. Slightly loosen the yarn as well. Then insert the needle through the middle dot and pass to the back. Since this flower is relatively large, each petal needs to be embroidered twice. If yarn fibers from the side get pulled out during embroidery, trim them first. This completes one petal. Embroider 4 more using the same method. Return to the middle position. This is the second petal. Adjust the insertion point based on the situation. This completes one flower. Handle the thread ends using the same method as before. Next, make the small flower above. The method is the same as the one below. Embroider back and forth from the 5 endpoints to the middle. The large flower's petals are embroidered into layers. The small flower's petals only need one layer. Next, follow the demonstration to embroider all the remaining flowers. Then start making the grass and buds. Measure according to the width of the embroidery hoop. Take a length of grass green yarn. Use the grass and buds next to the house for demonstration. Enter the frame from the back about 1 centimeter away from the lawn. The first line segment can be slightly tilted to the right. Enter the needle at the junction of the grass and the house. The second one can be longer than the first. The tilt does not need to be too large. Embroider 2 more in the same way. The one on the right can be slightly tilted to the left. It will be more layered if you make them different lengths. This way, a tuft of grass is embroidered. The method is to combine by embroidering small line segments of different lengths. The more lines, the bigger the grass. Then let's take a look at how to make flower buds. Take a length of orange thread. Enter the needle from the back. Place the needle on top of the thread. Don't take it too high. Wrap it counterclockwise from bottom to top. The yarn will form a loop on the large hole needle. Pass through the needle position next to the needle. Tighten the loop. A small bud is made. Demonstrate it again. The second bud is also finished. You can refer to the pattern on the diagram. You can also use different colored yarns according to your own preferences and actual situation. Finish the remaining grass and buds. Next, start making the house. First, embroider the door. Use ginger yellow thread to embroider. Enter the needle close to the junction of the lawn and the house. Pull the yarn vertically upwards. Find the corresponding position of the top edge. Pass the thread to the back. Close to the first stitch. Pull upwards and be vertical to the bottom. The brought out fibers can be trimmed first. If the bottom is narrow, you can skip a grid to enter the needle. The embroidered lines will be slanted. You can skip a stitch every 3 stitches. Embroider the other half in the same way. The 2 sides are symmetrical. In this way, the yellow part of the door is embroidered. Just hide the thread end in the loop. Then take a length of coffee-colored thread. Enter the needle at the top of the first line segment and come up. Along the arc at the top. Pass to the back at intervals of about 1 centimeter. Come up again at intervals of about 1 centimeter. Pass from the position of the second stitch to the back. This way, the arc at the top is embroidered. The two endpoints should be in symmetrical positions as much as possible. Then come out from the middle of the bottom. The length of both sides should be even. Vertically upward. Find the corresponding position. Pass to the back from below the line segment. Then embroider a small line segment on the left and right sides as the door handle. The distance between two line segments. Don't tighten it too much. This will be more three-dimensional. The second one is embroidered in a symmetrical position. If the previous line segment is pulled, you can gently pick it out. This way, a door is made. The method of making the other door is the same. Continue to embroider the windows. The main reference is the shape of the character's field and mouth. Follow the lines to make it. After the coffee-colored part is embroidered, change to ginger yellow thread. Embroider 2 more lines up and down as window sills. This way, a window is embroidered. Embroider 1 on each of the other 2 walls. After all are embroidered, along the off-white line segment between the 2 walls, embroider a line to make the wall separation clearer. This way, the house part is completed. Then let's deal with the traces of the water-soluble pen. First, use a water-soaked paper towel. Gently press on the area with water-soluble pen marks. This will make the marks disappear. Then use a dry paper towel to absorb the excess moisture. Remove it by pressing. Do not wipe directly. Otherwise, there will be lint on the surface of the yarn. This way, the traces of the water-soluble pen are cleaned up. Then leave it aside for about 10 minutes. Let the water on the surface dry thoroughly. After it is dry, turn the picture over to the back. Cut off the longer thread ends. This is all done.